She had no army, no crown of her own, no iron fortress looming on a hill. Yet within her lifetime she would tear down and rebuild the map of Europe, one marriage, one rebellion, one whispered bargain at a time. Eleanor of Aquitaine was not supposed to be more than a pawn in the dynastic games of men. Instead, she became the player who changed the rules, who placed her sons on rival thrones, and turned queenship from a ceremonial role into a power that frightened kings. Step back from the image of jeweled crowns and candlelit halls. The noise of crusades and court intrigue fades to a low murmur. You're left with the silhouette of one figure poised between obedience and rebellion, deciding that she will not simply be written about, she will be the one who writes. Tonight you travel back to a time when Europe was a patchwork of rival duchies, restless kingdoms, and brittle alliances stitched together by marriages that were supposed to tame war, but often ignited it. In the southwest corner of what is now France lay Aquitaine, a land of vineyards, troubadours, and fierce independence, a duchy rich enough to tempt kings and dangerous enough to defy them. Out of this soil came a teenage heiress, who before she could vote or even sign her own name without a guardian controlled more territory than the King of France. Her story is not merely about gowns and castles. It's about strategy disguised as romance rebellion, cloaked in ritual and a centuries-long ripple effect that still shapes borders, languages, and royal bloodlines. Before we venture further into the shadows, take a moment to subscribe so you never miss a secret that history has tried to forget. You arrive in Aquitaine not through thunderous battle or royal procession, but through the scent of pressed grapes and the echo of courtly poetry. The land itself seems untamed, lush, sprawling, and stubbornly proud of its heritage. And at the center of it all, in the early 12th century, stood a problem disguised as a blessing. Duke William X had only daughters, no sons to carry on the bloodline, no male heir to safeguard a duchy that controlled nearly a third of what is now modern France. When Eleanor was born around 1122, no one imagined she'd rule anything. Girls, after all, were married off, not crowned. But Aquitaine didn't like playing by the rules. William was no fool. He understood what he had: a daughter of wit, elegance, and sharp observation. The kind who paid attention to the rhythm of courtly rituals, but also noticed which lords whispered behind which banners. He ensured Eleanor's education rivaled that of any noble boy: Latin, history, philosophy, music. The fine arts, and something less often named political awareness. She knew how power flowed, who held it, and how it could be transferred without spilling a drop of blood, or at least without staining her own hands. But here's the strange part: William didn't just prepare Eleanor to be married. He prepared her to be his heir. In a twist that still perplexes some historians, he named her Duchess in her own right. Not by accident, not because there were no sons, but because he believed she could handle it. Before leaving for pilgrimage to Compostela, where he would die, William made arrangements for Eleanor's protection. He placed her under the direct care of the French king. Not her uncles, not her cousins. The king. That's not guardianship. That's matchmaking disguised as diplomacy. Within hours of William's death in 1137, Eleanor's titles made her the most eligible woman in Christendom and the most vulnerable. She was about 15, possibly younger. With one seal and a few drops of wax, she became Duchess of Aquitaine, Countess of Poitiers, and Lady of Gascony. But she was also a glowing target. Rich lands, no husband, no army, no adult male protector. Louis VI, the French king, wasted no time. The moment news of William's death reached him, he rushed to claim Eleanor not for himself, but for his heir. Louis the Younger, not yet king, not yet trained, and certainly not a match for Eleanor's calculating mind. But the union meant the crown of France would gain Aquitaine's wealth and territory, or so they thought. Here's where things begin to blur. Eleanor didn't protest the marriage, but she also didn't resist the idea that Aquitaine would remain separate, not absorbed into France, but attached by marital thread thin enough to be cut. Historians debate this. Was it merely legal custom that kept Aquitaine independent, or was Eleanor already planning for eventual detachment? Some believe that Eleanor saw further than anyone else, that she allowed the marriage knowing she could one day walk away with her lands intact, that she understood. Louis was pious, inexperienced, and ultimately incapable of mastering the duchy she had just inherited. A man better suited for prayer than power. There's an obscure document tucked away in a lesser-known archive of Poitiers, where a court clerk recorded the tensions between Eleanor's advisors and the royal court even before the wedding. Disputes over jurisdiction, over coinage, over who had the final word in Aquitaine's judicial matters. These weren't the disputes of a duchess bending to her new king. These were the struggles of a sovereign refusing to be annexed. Yet Eleanor played her role well, at least outwardly. The marriage to Louis was celebrated with pageantry and poems. The couple was young devout, and to the people seemingly harmonious. But underneath the silks and incense was a clash of destinies. Louis wanted a wife. Eleanor was building something else, something larger. The first clue lies in the very coronation, where Eleanor, still a teenager, was presented not merely as consort, but as co-ruler of Aquitaine. The ceremony didn't just honor her, it positioned her. Poised, radiant, and eerily composed, she was introduced to the realm not as property, but as presence. And every chronicler in the room knew it. No one had ever said it aloud, but the world was watching to see if Eleanor would be the bridge or the breaker, the woman who submitted to dynastic tradition, or the one who bent it into a new shape entirely. The deeper mystery remains: was this trajectory born of necessity or design? Was Eleanor simply the right woman at the wrong time, or the wrong woman for the old time, but the perfect architect for the one that would follow? One whisper echoes from her youth that still confounds scholars. A courtier once described her as a lady who listens to sermons like a bishop and rewrites them like a politician. It was meant as a warning. Instead, it may have been the first honest profile of a future queen who saw thrones not as